record button. So to welcome you to the week 3 discussion group. You know the discussion group agreement. You know what to do for anybody watching the recording, that it's not just watching the recording, it's also completing the catch-up task. Before we dive in, I do want to ask the team leaders, and I hope you're all present, to type into the chat window, identify yourselves, and if you can report back how many people in your respective national societies or language groups actually submitted works, and share your contact details for anybody who needs help or wants to reach out to you. So if you can take a minute to do that, if you are a team leader and you know who you are, type your contact details and tell us how your team is doing into the chat before we move on. All right, I'll give you a minute or two to do that. And this is what we'll be doing. Well, next week is of course the last week, but still. Okay, Patricia, there's no Italian Red Cross in this group, fair enough. All right, so while the team leaders do that, let me tell you about what the situation is this week. So we have, first of all, the good news, and actually pretty remarkable, is that 93 people have put in creator projects that are now in peer review. So some of them, many of them are, have a lot of detail. People have poured energy and effort and, their heart and soul into producing case studies in a very short time. To give you a sense just of how much stuff you have put together, we've got 619 pages of narrative in 2 weeks from this group. So that's around 6.5 pages. Now, some are very short, as one person reported before we started the session. The other thing that sort of struck me is that so many of these case studies include your personal photos as well as more official ones of the operation, maps of the situation, just a lot of sort of visual stuff to explain and tell your story. And that's also pretty extraordinary. Now, here is why I also have some bad news, is that, with 3 peer reviews for each work, that means we need 279 peer reviews altogether. And as of this morning, so far, this group has submitted 76 of the 279 that are needed. So, I know we know each other well enough by now that we've talked about, and I know you've all considered your commitment to each other, in this exercise. But really, you've got 2.5 days left to complete your reviews and basically honor the commitment that you made to your colleagues. So I'm pretty confident that all of you want to do it. The difference between want and actually on Friday being able to type into WhatsApp, I'm done with my peer reviews. That's what I want you to just figure out how you're going to do it. You've all shown, if you've made it this far, you can. There might be circumstances that prevent you from doing it, but that's really what I want you to focus on in this group. So we need 203 more peer reviews than what we have, and I can't help but turn to Panu to ask for your Panu, a word about this initial results, sort of halfway through the exercise, and your suggestions or your words of advice for people who haven't done their commitment that they have for this week as well.
Thanks. That was an excellent explanation and very illustrative of the great work done so far. I'm really impressed with the amount of work that has been put, and I'm very happy for the results so far. And your explanation about the commitment towards the others, towards your national society, and towards your ERU colleagues really hit the point of this issue. So mobilize your inner ERU delegate who is not a giver-upper. Just giving up is not really an option in an ERU operation. You cope and you cope and you cope and you find ways of doing it. You fake it till you make it, and you ask for support from the team. So and keep kind of the ultimate goal clear in front of you. This will really be helpful for a lot of future ERU delegates if we get this right and really get a solid, well-reviewed mass of your case studies, and that will be a source of great personal satisfaction to all of you, and this exercise will be referenced for many years to come as a great example. So hang in there and ask for support. It's just within reach.
Thank you, Panu. And again, if you need support and you're from one of these societies, do reach out to your team leaders as well. They've identified themselves in the chat. So I see Patricia, even though there are no Italian Red Cross folks, Verpi from Finnish and Swedish Red Crosses, who reports one participant had to drop out because of mission. Michael Silent only got a reaction of 2 of the 4 members. One quit the course, one was because of an illness late, but is proceeding. All right. Matanda's question, that's 93 in the 2 groups. So we just, the Ryerson group is really to accommodate people in the complicated time zone. And Marta reports 7 confirmed, and I think it's actually significantly more than that for the Spanish group. Great feedback. So do reach out to your team leaders. Do reach out to me if if you're struggling with peer review, if you have any challenges at all. We want you to finish, and we want you to get as much as you can from this exercise. I'm not going to go through all of the feedback because I'm eager to hear from you about your experience of peer review. Just want to highlight a couple of things on the challenges. Here is a quick slide. You can review this in the slide deck if you're not sure how to do this. If you want to find your stuff that you posted in the community, all you need to do is view your profile, and then in that right-hand column is everything you have done in Scholar, in Scholar's community. That makes it very easy to find your comments, your updates. It's all there for you to see. So I did want that. That is one thing. There's at least 2 people who said, they were having trouble finding their own stuff. So that's a practical answer. Yes, week 2 was pretty intense. So 2/3 of you said you spent a lot more time than you expected. Motivation is sky high. That should not be a surprise. And Panu's message about never giving up certainly came out. I highlighted, some of the situations and challenges that you feel and you have experienced and successfully overcome. So in some cases, we see people in very difficult circumstances because of everything from bandwidth to sort of technical challenges to real life like this who make it, who manage. And then we have people in, let's say, honestly, more comfortable situations who are constantly complaining and giving up. So it's an interesting contrast. And I think if you're still here, you're in the former group and not the latter. So I'm not going to belabor that point. I don't think you need me to do that for you. The other significant thing is, some of what you're telling us about how you're using what you're learning, and you putting it to use already. So you can see some of the feedback here. That's consistent with the idea that what we ask you and what you tell us about how likely it is that you're going to use what you got from the week. And just this idea, some of the insights, we call them eureka moments, but call them whatever you want. What has changed for you by doing this work? And we're expecting that from the peer review stuff, you're going to get a lot more of these kinds of insights to help you progress and think about in the final part of the exercise. And you'll be able to take those insights, take what you've been learning, and put it back into your case study to revise it, improve it, and finalize it, because by next Friday, we'll be done. That's it. With this exercise, and you'll have a case study. You'll also have the case studies of others, and pretty soon we'll have a package. We'll be asking for your explicit permission to use the case study. If there are any sensitive issues around confidentiality, several of you have been asking about that. I actually want to ask Panu, can you reassure participants about your willingness to engage and ensure that if a case study gets used, that any sensitive issues are addressed, and that explicit permission is secured from all those involved that it should be secured from?
Yes.
Okay, that's
without
all.
any further. And more importantly, consent given at any point of time during the course or before is revocable.
Right, right. Great. So week 3, what do you need to do? Obviously, you have only one goal. You're free to, now I also want to say, once you've done your 3 peer reviews, you may want to go back and look at all of the stories in the community. You may want to go back and look at some of the videos and explainers that we have from the previous weeks. But first focus on getting those peer reviews done. Going back to read those stories in the community can be really fulfilling, really interesting to be learning from others. And the idea is we're not going to be chasing after you to tell you read 3 updates by the end of this week. You are adult learners. So, find what if you find something interesting, go for it. Make sure you have time for it as well. We're now beyond the cutoff point where basically only those who have submitted a creator project are working on peer review. And so that means we are fewer in numbers, but we know something about the level of commitment that got you to this point, and that can take you through to the successful completion of the exercise. So here, if you want to look in the slide deck at week 3 and 4, the details of what you're going to be doing, but basically next week, you'll be finishing your case study using the inputs, the feedback that you're going to receive starting on Saturday. So first, I want to cover a couple of things and ask you to contribute to tell me we're going to look at pieces of feedback that have come in. You haven't seen them yet because they will only be released Saturday, but I really want you to think about when you're doing these peer reviews, what makes a good feedback versus not so useful feedback. So first of all, you're not evaluating the operation, and we've revised the rubric because we were over eager to shorten it and make it simple. So in some cases, it was ambiguous what you were evaluating. So just to be clear, you're evaluating the case study, not the operation. All right. So here's an example, and I just want to ask if you can tell me in the chat. This is somebody who said, in response for the criterion of what we learned, there's nothing here discussing SAF elements. I'm sorry that I have given you such a low grading, but I truly try to understand the operation. And actually, the person just didn't write up that section. So I just want to ask you, so don't be confused because there is the rating for what we learned here, but I would like you to type into the chat window the rating you would give to the quality of this feedback. Is this a good feedback? If it's an excellent feedback, type a 4 into the chat window. If you think this is awful feedback and there's something really wrong with it, put a 0 or somewhere in between. So I will start, I don't want to start off because I don't want to set the trend, but if you want to type, okay, so Carolyn gives a 2. Okay, for the feedback we're looking at. Obviously, we don't know what is being evaluated. Eva Verpi gave a 4. Dave Luddington gave a 1. All right, Patricia gave a 0. Okay, let's hear from Patricia. Yeah, Patricia, can you tell us why this is a 0? Why this is, in your opinion, horrible feedback?
Sorry, no, I did a mistake. Okay. I didn't receive my feedback.
Okay, all right. So let's see. Let's go to Dave. So Dave, you said this would be a 1 out of 4 in terms of the quality of the feedback. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, I think it stated the obvious, but it fails to help the author determine how they could improve it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, so that is one example. Here is another example. Here we have, again, the what we learned section. This person gives what looks like is a 0 of 4, but then writes 2. Author did not describe any improvement areas for future deployment, but it is understandable due in this exercise. Okay, and Levon on the previous one says, I think feedback should also advise what needs to be added or improved. So what would you rate this piece of feedback? There's something obviously wrong with it. Okay, so Jan Gael would give a 1, Verpi would give a 2. Okay, you're being quite generous. Okay, and we've got 1s pretty much. Okay, 0 from Ranveig. Okay. Ranveig, why is this a 0? You'll need to unmute yourself to answer that question.
Yeah, basically, I don't understand what it means. 2 author did not describe any improvement areas for future deployment. That I can vaguely understand, but it's understandable due in this exercise. What does it mean?
Yeah.
I don't even understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah. So yeah, and this is especially important because feedback is anonymous, so you can't just turn around to the person and say, what did you mean exactly? So you will be able to give feedback on feedback, but what I want you to think about here is, as you're peer reviewing, make sure you share sort of clear, you write as clearly and simply as you can, and give sort of actionable instructions to and suggestions at least to the author you're reviewing. Also, this is a person who actually immediately wrote me because they realized they had made a really significant mistake, which is instead of putting the slider on the 2, they didn't touch the slider. So the person then ends up with a rating recorded as a 0 instead of the 2 that the reviewer meant to assign. So that's another thing to watch out for. So I don't want to belabor the point. Do look, if you have time, look at the slide deck, and there are some other examples of different types of ratings. Think about what makes good or bad feedback, and use that to consider what the feedback you've given so far. All right. I hope this is so the corrected feedback ratings, to answer Ava's question. Let me just give you the direct link. So it's in the materials panel for but let me just give it to you here in the chat window. So this is the link to download the updated rubric. Now be careful, because what you'll see in Creator is the initial version that was ambiguous. So do look at this PDF I just shared to make sure you're using that. All right. So now participant presentations. This is the good stuff. So we know some of you, even though yes, the folks who've done, how many was it? 76 of the peer reviews already. We really need you to step up and share your experience of peer review. I would ask you to go to Creator and find one of the projects you have reviewed, and then you'll get 3 minutes to tell us about your experience of peer review, what you found challenging, how you made up your mind about what to focus on in terms of the suggestions and advice you've given. So do use the little raise hand feature. This is week 3, so you know how this works, and it shouldn't be. I know there are people who have done this work, so it shouldn't be like pulling teeth, or not anymore at least. Otherwise, we know who you are, so we're gonna, I can be a little bit more directive. But anybody who'd like to share their experience of peer review on a voluntary basis would be welcome to step up. Okay, Gurudev and Yann-Gaël Menet. All right, let's go to Yann-Gaël. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you once again to pronounce my name perfectly, because it's pretty rare even for French people. What I want to share is what's probably why the number is so low is the first review will take many time to understand everything and to put everything together. And the same when you come to the
yeah, that's a good point. Yann-Gaël, can I ask you to share your screen, and then you show us the review that you have completed, and tell us what took you so much time, and how if you can share your insights. Do you feel ready to do that?
I don't really know how to share my screen, to be quite honest.
Okay, so it's something I do. You should now see a prompt on your screen that asks you to share yours. And if you want to pull up, go into Scholar and share your Creator project, or the Creator project that you reviewed. Yeah, great. So okay. We're now seeing your screen. And if you want to go now to, into Scholar and show us your...
I try to do fast now because...
That's all right. These sessions are really short. We keep them to the point. We keep them 30 minutes just because we know your time is precious.
Is that my work and that the one I comment to?
Yeah. So we need, and of course, if you're the author of the work, play along. This is breaking a little bit with anonymity, but it's for a good cause of helping everyone sort of get in sync on peer review. So I'm going to start. Yes, I'm going to start Mr. Timer, and you have 3 minutes to tell us about your experience of peer review starting now.
The thing is, I cannot see my comment because I put comment on all those three. Why I cannot see anymore? Yeah, I see it. Sorry, my bad. So the first thing I didn't really understood, as many people, how to put the grade from 0 to 4. So that takes me some time. Then after I have to read the whole many times to see exactly what note I should to put, and to go there to understand, you see the grade, what I have to put grade, and read again the paper to make sure I give the good grade. One example for me on this one, it was pretty striking. It was about the ERU. I tried to find where it was the ERU, the operation, incoming ERU. I put 1 because I read the whole the things and I never see any comment about ERU. In the beginning, I put 0 to be quite honest, and then after I read again, and just at the last sentence, you see ERU. So I changed my grade again and to put the describe. That's why it takes me many times. I'm pretty sure the 2 other will be pretty faster to do it, because it takes me some time to understand it, to read again, and to do what I have to put some grade. But to be quite honest, is 2 questions that are really difficult. Like for example, I put a 4 somewhere, and I really don't know what to say when it's 4. It seems to me probably perfect. I don't know why should I comment on something with 4. Will probably give you some idea on this. Of course, it's very well done thing because it's many picture, as you say, many. What I really like about this one is, for example, here, put a picture, but you put also comment on a picture, so we understand better what he's talking about. He put something obviously I didn't do, to be quite honest, a comment under the picture as well. So it's pretty well done on this part. So basically that's it. It took me some time to how to do the review, to read every time, and to know how to put the grade regarding the study case. Sorry, I'm pretty tired this morning. If my word is not perfect, I'm not English native speaking, if I may say so.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan Gael. That's a very interesting. On the issue of what do you say when you give a 4, if you can try to figure out what makes this an excellent, sort of what makes this so good, that's actually also useful in terms of figuring out, how you advise somebody next time, or how you think about your own work. So that is the advice I can offer. Okay, so I see some great comments in the chat. So yes, so Alain answered Jan Gael. Yes, I think because we need to explain our choice. Yes, you need to explain what is excellent about it. This can be more difficult than telling somebody why it's crap. And in either case, you need to say why. Obviously what to improve if it's excellent. Even there, what could be, what could help achieve perfection? Anyway, Levon, the challenge for me was sometimes the cases were very well describing the operation in National Society, but not necessarily according to SAF structure, and not explicitly mentioning SAF elements, but all were there. So I have noticed that as well, Levon. That is, and really that last part on lessons, on what we learned. You really want to, and most of you have done this, but some have not, identify the SAF elements. For each element, identify the actions. Make sure those actions are context specific. You have a kind of laundry list of actions, but that's not all you want. People who have not do that, their reviewers should definitely be pointing that out and encouraging them to improve that next week. So Patricia, in one of the cases I reviewed, the degree description didn't really correspond. Okay, Kai has problems with his connection. And Stephen, agree with you, Levon, that was my experience too. So I asked for examples and references relating to the framework and that element number did it relate to. Yes, that's perfect. Would be good if there was a sample to follow besides the rubric. So we don't do that. because we're actually interested in seeing what you come up with. I don't think, we have the ICRC case studies, which are from the National Society perspective. So if you remember, we had you work on those and tell us what makes this a good case study. So but that can't be a model for, the kinds of things, or that doesn't completely transpose to what you're doing here. Fatima, how to proceed if I have not received any work for peer review? That is strange. Contact Hannah as soon as possible. He will fix that for you. And Ranveig, since I have not received feedback yet, but want to continue work on my case study, how do I do that? So case study feedback will be released on Saturday. You can continue working on your case study. Your reviewers won't see it, but be careful about versions. We'll have a tutorial about that to explain that. From Ia, Susan, I'm never sure what to do with those first two letters, so sorry about that. I think I've called you Ia in emails. Language is a problem. I'm reviewing a text early written by a French speaker with abbreviations that I have to Google, and some parts seem to be written in Googlish, so it takes a long time. Reading in the original language may be easier. Okay, yeah. So, English is the working language, is the reality we operate in, like it or not. So we did set up language-specific groups. That's certainly potentially an area for improvement. Can we go back in and change our feedback? How do we do this? Unfortunately, no. A lot of the things in Creator are final. Once you do them, there's no undo. And we were explicit about this in the instructions we gave you. Lai Wai Kiat, my opinion, peer review is very subjective and different from others. This adds on to challenges as we might interpret the story differently. So that's interesting, but that's why we have 3 reviewers. If it was just one person, that could happen. But what we find, and there's actually research that shows that if you've got 3 people giving you advice, chances are it balances out in ways that are useful. So we've got 3 minutes left. I want to turn back to Panu and to ask you, after listening to Jan Gael's sort of what he shared about his experience of reviewing these works. Again, can you remind us what actually matters about these case studies? Why, what would you be looking for if you were, if you were reviewing some of these? And you will be looking at them as we move towards preparing the training package. But what's actually important? Can you give us the big picture and tell us what advice on what folks should be focusing on?
Well, thank you. A couple of points. As you said earlier, don't evaluate the operation, but evaluate the case study. Operations are different, and the purpose and the great learning in this exercise doesn't come from evaluating the operational goals and what went wrong. So I would be looking at the richness and kind of completeness of the description of the situation. And then, as the rubric explains, looking at the SAF elements, how they have been pulled out of the case study. This has, of course, it is dependent on what kind of a situation you have chosen. If the situation and the case that you are presenting is not rich enough, then that kind of builds problems to the whole process of evaluating it. So there is a value in choosing a situation that is rich and relevant and can truly be elaborated on. If you don't describe the situation and your own actions in it and your own role in it to sufficient detail, there is no way for the peer reviewer to give high marks and to really extract the good elements out of it. And then a word about the grade 4 and something being excellent. Excellent is not synonymous with perfect. There are different types of excellent, and one excellent can still be different and can be elaborated further on into a different direction, and it will still be excellent if it meets the criteria that we have agreed on in the rubric. So excellent doesn't mean perfect. That does not or cannot be worked on any further, in my mind. So don't be afraid for the grade 4. but not everything is excellent, and not everything is worth the grade for.
Thank you very much, Panu. So I'm going to read some last comments, and the reason, just to remind you, the reason I read what's in the chat box is because people viewing the recording, and there's around 20 people who are not here in this session. Actually, they're the people from the Ryerson group, because attendance has been nearly perfect. But anyway, for the few people who missed this session, they won't be able to see the chat box, hence the need to read the very interesting comments. So we have people calling who are offering. Eliette, who says, you can count me among your volunteers. Thank you for that. Unavailable on Saturday. So yes, Sunday or up through Monday would be good. But this is the critical point that I've been talking about since the beginning, when if you're late with your peer review feedback, then that reduces the amount of time that the person will have to benefit from that feedback. So really, this is the critical week. There was some leeway last week, but not this time around. So I appreciate the efforts you're all making to get there by Friday, or worst case scenario Saturday, so everyone can receive their feedback on time. So thank you very much. There is no need, unless I'm willing to stick around a few more minutes if there are specific technical questions and problems, but my sense is that everyone by this stage knows how to do peer review. What will happen on Saturday is you will receive notifications informing you that you've received peer review feedback, and you'll go to the same place where you did peer review. Only this time you'll see two things. Maybe this is actually worth showing you. So if you need to leave and you're confident about the technical stuff, go now. We're actually 2 minutes over time. If you do have time to stick around, I'm realizing it may be worth taking 5 minutes to explicitly show you this. So let me just get my browser set up and switch windows. So let me see. Yeah, here we go. And I was just looking up the Malaysian general election. So here's the way peer review. All right. So here I'm kind of breaking confidentiality. So let me see how I can do this. Okay, we're just gonna have to. So the first thing you'll see when you go to your peer reviews, you'll go to your peer review results, okay? And the first thing you see are the average ratings, all right? So this person, so far, there's a third review yet to come in, has a 1 out of 4 on focus and creativity, 3 out of 4 on the, you'll see the ratings for each of the criteria. So those are the averages. Now, some people miss that there's a little menu here. So this is, in my case, is showing people's names. I apologize if I'm breaking confidentiality for folks. You'll see reviewer 1, reviewer 2, reviewer 3, and then you can access each of the individual reviews in this way. So I'm gonna try to, so here, is the specific peer review feedback. And so your focus is going to be on figuring out what the person is telling you for each piece of feedback. In some cases, you're going to be looking at, people are going to tell you, are going to contradict each other. One person will give you a 4, the other person a 0. That's sort of the more extreme case. And assuming they both did a good job of explaining why they've given you that rating, there should be something, you'll have to make the decisions about what pieces of feedback you keep and which pieces of feedback you can choose to ignore. It's your case study, you own it, it's your story. But these inputs are worth considering, and they require time in your calendar to consider. So that's, again, the same point you've been hearing from me since day one, but I just will keep hammering it in. So if you get contradictory feedback, you have to make sense of it and decide what you're going to do about it, and then go back to your project and figure out what you're going to rework. You'll want to be realistic, okay? You only have a week to do this, and you're also holding down a full-time job, and you have a personal life. So be realistic about what kinds of changes you can make. We will be looking at the nature of the changes. So people who change a comma here and a period there, we'll be in touch with you to ask you to look at more substantive changes that you might be able to make to improve your case study next week. So the idea is figure out what's realistic and then make those changes as soon as you can. If you need help, if you want to discuss it, you know how to use the community by now. So you can post an update, with the issues that you're facing. And this is not the point of the feedback, but underneath each piece of feedback that you receive, there is a comment box. So that enables you to give feedback on feedback. All right. So that means you can talk back to your reviewer. And if you want to say, whether that's to explain to them what you did with the feedback, whether that's to challenge them a little bit or to ask them for more information, you can have a whole level of dialogue there. But that's not the point of the exercise. The point is to use the feedback you get, put it back into your creative project and figure out how to action it, how to use it to improve the final version of your case study, and call it a day. After that, if you want to have back and forth with your reviewers, feel free to do so, but first get the job done. That's basically the message here. And again, once you finish making all the changes, then you'll click on submit your on the submit button in Creator. Don't click on that button before. There is no undo. So if you have any technical questions, reach out to Hannah. And very nice to see Eugene and Eliette with with a small child in their arms. My own is about 2 meters away that way. Yes. So that's it for today, folks. If there are any burning questions, let me just check in the chat. I think I do see some questions. All right, Oscar is offering to help for French and Spanish speakers, and great. So do reach out to Oscar. Yes, so Maria asks, if we have 5 people giving feedback, how will we receive the different feedbacks? So that's what I just showed you. You'll have a little pop-up menu and you can look at each of the individual feedbacks and think about them and decide what you're going to do. Can we work in Creator offline? No. Now what you can do is download your case study as a PDF that includes the feedback. Actually, let me show you how to do that. So at the top, you have your this little print button. So if you click on that, and if you click on reviews and then view in browser, that will give you all of the feedback and your case study that you can now print or save as a PDF. So that's one way to do it, is to use that little print button in Creator. So that is it. Christian asked, can my own comments on the first review be seen by the recipient? My own comments on the first review, I'm not sure. So feedback on feedback, that only starts Saturday. So if you put in comments before that, they haven't been seen by anybody because the reviews have not been released yet. So that process, what I've just been describing to you, only starts Saturday, given that we have over 200 peer reviews to complete in the next 56 hours. So that's it, I think, for today. Thank you, Panu, for I'm glad you were able to join us and get a feel for how the group is progressing. We had Kathy with us last week. Very pleased to have both of you contributing to helping make this exercise happen. Wishing you well. Focus and just be very practical about getting these peer reviews done. Think about the kind of feedback you'd like to get and how and give that to projects that you're reviewing. Absolutely amazing case studies. Very pleased with what we're seeing. If you didn't finish or submitted something that was incomplete, make sure look at your calendar and figure out what's realistic for next week. So you do get a second chance in a way, even though you won't have the benefit of feedback beyond people telling you, well, you haven't finished your case study or whatever the case may be. So that's it. I'm going to unmute everyone so we can say goodbye to each other. Wishing you well, and see you in Scholar.
Goodbye. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good day. Yes. Curator.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Reda.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
iyo yarambwiye ngo ko avuga ko iyo traverse ayikora mu cyumweru gitaha nawe ubona ko atayikoze mu cyumweru gitaha byazagorana muri RDB.
Take care, folks. Take care, everybody.